Well, I couldn't do this without choosing a Rush album. Rush are really, really huge influence on me, an important part of my musical life. I discovered them when I was about 12. Around the same time I was really starting to get into jazz. I was at a jazz camp, and the drum teacher actually, we were playing jazz the whole week, but the drum teacher actually played all the drum students, the Neil Peart's drum solo on this record, which is on the song YYZ. And it's just like a 3-minute drum solo, but it's just fantastic. I still really love to hear it. It's very cool because I feel like he's still kind of playing the tune in a way that jazz musicians do. It kind of remains, the solo's in the middle of the tune, it stays in the same tempo as the tune, and it's sort of playing a lot of the same rhythmic ideas, or the same, it's like I said, he's sort of playing the tune. He continues playing in the energy and the style of the tune, and it just really, really just lit the fire for me. So this record is Exit Stage Left. This is from 1981. It's their second live album, and this is still kind of my favorite Rush album. There's nothing particularly audiophile about this. It's Rush collectors will probably want to pick an early pressing that was mastered by the enigmatic mastering engineer named Gilbert Kong, and you'll see his initials as GK. If you see a Rush album that has in the dead wax the initials GK, then you know you have a winner. And that's what this is an early copy. Around the time I got into them, the new album that had just come out, or was about to come out in September of '87, was a record called Hold Your Fire. And it was exciting to me that this was the new record. This is the new Rush album that came out, and it's vastly different than the stuff they were doing even 5 years before. But I still really love this record. This is actually my original copy that I bought new at National Record Mart in Pittsburgh in Squirrel Hill in September of 1987. And it's kind of beat up. I actually have a much better copy that I found in Vancouver. This is actually a Canadian pressing, Anthem Records, which is their imprint in Canada only. This is a very, very good version. This is the version to have, I think, if you want to hear Hold Your Fire as a really stunning sound. But it's such a departure, but I love these tunes. And the first time I saw them was on this tour in December of '87, and it was the first of many, many Rush concerts. I think I've been to about 36 or 37 Rush concerts over the years. Yeah, Ken is making fun of me right now. But I love these guys. I in some ways am probably a professional musician because of these guys. There are certainly other things I was listening to at the time, and other big influences as far as the direction bigger influences as far as the musical direction I ended up going in. But these guys lit the fire for me in a way that few other people could. So this is very, very important music for me. I wanted to pick one classical record at least. I'm not a huge classical, connoisseur. I don't know that much about it, but I do really enjoy listening to classical. And I particularly love, early 20th century. I love Bartók a lot, but I really love The Planets by Gustav Holst, British composer. And I've listened to a lot of different recordings of The Planets, and I really, really, really love this one. This is the first one that really connected with me. This is Charles Dutoit, Montreal Symphony, I guess. So this is a digital recording. This is mid-'80s, I think 86, on London Records. And I do probably listen to this on CD more than I listen to the LP. I did find an LP of it. And the LP sounds really good, too. It's just an amazing performance. I really love his tempos. It's some of the most beautiful music ever written, I think, and I really love his interpretation of this stuff, and it also sounds just incredible. Even, I'm not an analog snob. I don't only listen to analog. I do kind of prefer it maybe, but this recording is just fantastic, and there's some low bass notes I want to point out, as far as just being, I mean, this is sort of silly, showing off your system, what your system can do, but there are some bass notes in Saturn, which is the 6th movement. Near the end, there's some low organ bass notes. This is a big symphony orchestra with some extra players. There's like 2 harps, there's 2 timpani players, there's celeste, all this extra stuff, and also an organ. And there's some low bass notes on the organ at the end of the Saturn movement that are so well recorded. They're kind of hot in the mix, and they're really cool if you have a system that can play them. And I'm lucky that they sound good on my system. They sound unbelievable on my headphone system. So that's kind of fun to listen to. My final pick is Larry Young's Unity, which I guess if I had to pick one record, if I had to pick a single desert island record, this might be it. This might be my favorite record of all time. And this reminds me of college. I was, my first or second year at William Patterson, and I was starting to really collect records. I was starting to really get deep into Blue Note. And this is the mid-90s, this is before the internet, really, and it was hard to find out information. You couldn't just look at a discography of somebody that easily, and I just found out that there was this organ record with Elvin Jones. I was, starting to get obsessed with Elvin Jones, and so I just had to track down this record. And in those days, you couldn't just go to YouTube, or you couldn't go to Spotify or whatever and hear a record if you wanted. You actually had to find it in a record store, and I couldn't find a CD, I couldn't find any copies, and I finally found this copy, which is a 1980s pressing in a record store called Rare Records in Teaneck, New Jersey, which was a great record store. This is an original stereo, my most recent acquisition as far as this title is concerned. The jacket's kind of beat up, but the record actually plays very clean, and man, this sounds great. It's just got a certain vibe. The tunes are really cool. It's some Larry Young originals, some Woody Shaw originals. Woody Shaw and Joe Henderson is the front line, and they both just play so unbelievably well. It's such classic Joe Henderson. It's such an amazing example of his sound and his ideas. And man, Elvin just sounds so good on this record. He plays a solo on Monk's Dream that I transcribed. That's really complicated and really introduced me to some very interesting phrasing ideas as a drummer. Elvin does a lot of things, a lot of solo ideas where he marks the phrases. If a tune is in, like, say, 4-bar phrases, he'll mark the phrases, but he'll do it in sort of screwy ways where he'll get to the end of a 4-bar phrase, and instead of marking beat 1 of the next phrase, he'll mark beat 4 of the previous phrase, or he'll mark the and of 1. Things like that. This is sort of technical for musicians, but it's so cool, and he does that. He plays. It's also known as playing over the bar line, where you're sort of, playing, continuing into the next phrase, and then landing at a sort of odd point in the next phrase or something like that. And he does it a really brilliant way in that particular solo. I just love this record so much. And I have this original, I have the 80s pressing, and then I also have these 2 Music Matters pressings, the double 45 and then the more recent 33 RPM version.
Well, how do those sound different?
I don't know, actually. I honestly have never compared them. Right. And I sometimes get into the rabbit hole of comparing things like this. And I find, for me personally, I'm glad you asked me that, because I am trying really hard not to A-B stuff. Sometimes you put something on and okay, this is a lesser version or something, or you put something in your system and okay, this component doesn't really work for me, I just don't like it. But I can really drive myself crazy trying to A-B things. But if you're strictly listening as a music fan, it's not productive, and it can kind of take you out of the enjoyment of music maybe a little bit. Seriously, I could put on a cassette dub of this record on a 1980s Sony Walkman and play it, you know, or a boombox or something, and just sit there and enjoy it and have the greatest time. And who cares what version it is? You know, a record like this is really, you know, for me, I just want to hear the music.